Thank you. Okay, there is some challenge there, but I will just go ahead while we're getting it organized. Yes, okay, it's ready.
Vendors in Swan Street were set up from early to carry about their day. The fire chief, Errol Maynard, had a walkthrough earlier this week where he reported his concerns about access to Swan Street with so many vendors on the street. The vendors, however, have a different view. One vendor, who gave his name as Javi, believes that all the vendors on the street will be cooperative if needed, but he doesn't think they should have to move.
I could tell you personally that we just sell out here, and if a fire truck was scanning through there, we can move these things so fast the fire truck can get through. You know what I tell you, brother? I could tell you that from personal experience. Anything happen out here, we support, we can look out, and we can be here. So allow the hustlers called tourists like to see it, brother.
Another vendor, Jason Trotman, says if the vendors are moved, they will not only change the culture of the street, but it will impact the economy.
As you move, part we gonna sell, and if you move, here gonna end up like Broad Street, day. And we supposed to keep town alive round right now. Swan Street is the most busiest street in town. Tourists, everybody's pass through here, and ain't no way to put me real thing. And there's one put me, part me and one get put. And when the put me somewhere, the people that's walk along the road don't come and buy in front of you, they don't come and look for you. Real thing.
Now, in an exclusive interview with Deputy Fire Chief Henderson Patrick, he spoke to some of the issues that the fire service encounters, which are not only in Bridgetown, but in surrounding areas.
What will impact response is the area where the incident is located, whether we have good access. By good access, I mean there's some areas, especially within the city area, where persons doing discriminate parking. And quite recently, one of my officers reported that they had to park the vehicle a ways off from the incident and extended a number of holes because they could not get directly to the incident as a result of indiscriminate parking. We have experienced that certainly within the Westbury area.
For the meanwhile, vendors will continue to operate in Bridgetown. Akeem Klinkett, CBC News.
I love it. I'm listening to that, Miss McClean, how he's singing. He's singing he's talking about what he's selling and he's singing. And I tell you, that's what my grandmother used to do. And I used to go to the market with her. I'd done my common entrance and they said pass for a good school, a big school in Kingston. But, on weekends and summer, I was down in the country and I was selling in the market with my grandmother. And she used to make, the stuff, and I put them on my hand clothes, and I'm out in the street, and I was very good at selling the things, And I went on Swan Street, and I don't know how many of you on the show or you would remember Miss McClean. And it's so funny that I interviewed all of the young men that had a stall. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Yes. I went through and I was so impressed with these young men. They had their stalls. They were selling either jewelry. They're selling drinks. I'm not going to say drinks, not alcohol, right? And what prompted me, Miss McClean, to do that? And I want people, stay on, please. Don't leave because we finished talking about Bounty. This is about you because it's about us Barbadians. Stay on, please. I was passing there one day, busy leaving Abbott's, and these young men said hello to me. And I'm like, who are you? Oh, I don't know you. And they said, yes, they remembered me that I was doing a film up in Britain's Hill. When I was doing a film up there, I was shooting in Britain's Hill, a film. When I say shooting, let me just clarify the camera. Shooting a film, because people will leave here and say all kind of things. And listen, those young men in Britain's Hill, they were determined that every time they see me, I was going to pay them money to be in Britain's Hill. That's one of the guys I was. And they felt that they wanted to, get money from me all the time. And probably 1 or 2 times I gave them, because they said, if you're filming here, you have to pay us. You have to pay this, you have to pay that. Listen, one day I got so mad, Miss McClean, and I tell them, you're not getting 1 red cent, and I'm going to take the camera and I'm filming you all. I said, my camera is my weapon, and I'm not paying you any more money. But they remembered me, right? And I said, yes. And they said, yes, you remember. And they remember the whole story. And they said, come and buy a drink from me, man. Because they used to come out every morning. You see them rubbing out the hand middle. You know what's happening, right? They're rubbing and the scissors and all of that. And they just sat down, did anything. But these were 3 young guys. I believe there were 3 of them with a big white cooler. And they were selling right there on Swan Street. And they say, you see, we're selling now. Come and buy a drink from me. Of course, you know, I bought a drink for me and a drink for Dave, you know, and we, you know, took it home for him just because I wanted to support them. So here it is, this young man, I was interviewing him on Swan Street. I hope the audio, is the audio good for this one, Dave? Try and see. Right, this is the one with the bad audio. Okay, but just keep his picture there. Miss McClean, I went through and I interviewed these young men out there. And do you know that all of them had a name for their business?
Okay.
It did not matter how small the table was. It didn't matter that they didn't have a lot. He had a name for his business. Okay? Every single one of those young men had a name for their business. I was surprised. And some of them told me that they went through the government program and they understand this is their business and they're selling the jewelry, oils, all kinds of things they're selling out there. Right? And I'm saying to myself, you mean to tell me, Miss McClean, here it is, you have young Black people, Black men. I even saw taxi drivers out there standing up. I was wondering, I said, but what you doing? You drive a taxi, what are you doing on Swan Street? I'm there, you know, he says, well, when they come out of the stores with the bags, I help them with the bags and then ask them if they want a taxi. So he's a businessman. They know the people are on Swan Street, so we go where the people are. I don't understand why, what has possessed these these people that they left their office to go out there to bother those people. Last thing I'll say, because you are the official on this. This is your area. I do know it is possible, yes, that some of them might clog up doors, but I don't see them in front of a door. But I'm not a fire chief. I'm not into that's not my area. But what I'll say before you jump in, Miss McClean, is this. I'm looking for the day when our government says, listen, let's work with you. We're not going to just come and move you. Let's work with you. I spoke with an official from Bahamas and they said to me, our coconut vendors, they used to throw this stuff on the road and they block up the road and all of that. And you know what? He said to me, our government decided to send the Ministry of Culture to find out how many coconut vendors we have. And Miss McClean, what they did is that in Bahamas, and I hope to get him on this program to talk to us. What they did, Miss McClean, is that they invested in the coconut vendors. Right? They put money in there. They put up a big thing to put the trash in. And they decorated their carts. And they made them a tourist attraction and accepted them as part of the culture. I am looking for the day when our government will not see our vendors and those with entrepreneurial skills and abilities as a bother and messing up society, but find a way to facilitate them. That's the calmest I can say because I'm very upset about this. Over to you, Miss McClean.
Marcia, you know, I'm listening to you. I watched the young man there, and a whole set of things came to mind. I was actually about to try to retrieve a message because as we are on the program, I mentioned a shooting in Freehill. I asked my brothers, and one of my brothers responded to tell me that he heard there about 3 young fellas, three youth, I presume 3 young men involved in whatever way. We'll have to find out later. And I refer to that because my question is, what exactly is happening to our young men? Where are our young men when it comes to employment or creating opportunities for themselves? Part of what we are seeing there, and everybody says they use the word hustle, and they literally have to hustle to survive.
Yes.
Now, you referred to those young men in Britain Hill when you were filming. I was laughing because I said, Lord, they troubled the wrong person. But at the end of the day, what they were saying to you proudly so is look where we are now. And we are here trying as a agency to make an honest dollar.
Yes.
Now, I listened very carefully, and I'm going to talk some more about entrepreneurship and small business and self-employment. I listened carefully to the fire official, though. I don't know, we only heard an extract, but he was talking about vehicles parked illegally and the problems that created. He did not speak, at least what was captured there was not about Swan Street per se, but as I listened to him and I saw the quote unquote problem, my mind was working to a solution. Because at the end of the day, I watched the young man's table.
Mm-hmm.
Can you come up with a design that is retractable? So in other words, you hear a fire truck, because at the end of the day, they're more on the sidewalks rather than inside of the street itself. But
Yes.
customers and so on and people, that creates, a lot of traffic. But I started to look at the street and I said, these are guys with jewelry. These are guys with oils and whatever else. The way that they can be displayed could be something which retracts, which also helps them to store the thing, to remove it. I was just imagining, as I looked at that, situations when I would have been in Manhattan. And there's some Sundays where they're like street markets. And people have their wares spread out, but some of the things were collapsible so that they could pack up at the end of the day pretty easily. And so I am thinking, why can't we come up with a design that helps these young men in a situation? Because you hear an alarm and clear the road, right? I think Barbadians are still sufficiently law-abiding that they would do that. No,
They will do it. They will do it, Miss McClean. They will do it.
So my question is, if we don't try to find a solution, because as you correctly said, and I think the guy said that was interviewed, Swan Street is where life is. I mean, you can run. Well, I guess it is run themselves. Rats through Broad Street. There's very little that's happening on Broad Street. I mean, I drive through Broad Street and I look. Once a building is shut up, it deteriorates very quickly. You see all the shuttered buildings, and so there's not the activity. Now, the other thing that they could do is, if they want to reduce some of the traffic on Swan Street, find a way to make Broad Street's rents reasonable, or government can subsidize it. So some of those can be turned into shopping complexes of whatever, but find solutions. Don't just, because the next thing they're going to say, move from here and go where. And the other reality, and this was something I mentioned to you at some when you signaled that you were going to look at Swan Street. In difficult times, people turn to vending.
Yes.
You would notice that there is a significant increase in vending when people are having a hard time finding jobs. What is painful is that in a lot of instances, people are selling items that make it almost impossible for them to make a decent living out of selling what they're selling, but they're just trying their best not to be mendicant and go and beg for handouts and trying to help themselves. But so we're going to clear away all of this. Where are these young people going to go? And a lot of them, as you can see, are young males, because a lot more of their female counterparts are in post-secondary situations, education, or some working, and so on. So I think the question is, there's congestion. How do you address the congestion, the situation, in a way to ease congestion in emergencies? How do you signal early that there's an emergency? because at the end of the day, I am sure that people would be aware that, as the guy said, he mentioned he didn't give details, but from what he said, there must have been an incident where they had to react and clear the way. So I say to people, find solutions rather than say you gotta go or you're a problem.
Yeah, actually, what I was making mention of, and I know people are trying to call in. Just give us a moment. The two persons who called, I am going to call you back, but we need to just put some information out there on this issue and to present, a balanced thing, because we do understand if it is a fire hazard, then we're not saying it's not congested. What I am saying is, can we work together with the vendors? Can we find, and that's what we're not being irresponsible. We're saying, I'm down there and I see that it's congested, but it's a place that people are selling. It's a reality. It is where people are selling. But the question is, and this is somebody who owns the stores along there? Those stores, I remember Mr. Marshall gave me a history on the stores on Swan Street, and he said it went from Jewish, you can correct me, Miss McClean, from Jewish owners to white Barbadians, and now to Syrians, and now Indians. Am I correct in that?
I think, that's the mix, and in terms of the sequence, pretty much, I would say yes.
Pretty much. Now, here's a question here. When you go to those stores, to us, it seems like all those stores just have one doors where you enter and you exit. I'm just wondering, I don't know the back of people's stores. I am saying, this is where I have to ask the questions, Ms. McClean. Are you holding the stores themselves at the same standard that you're holding?
You remember
the people on the street?
You remember the campus trend fire?
Yes.
Where part of the concern was that there was no exit. There was just one entrance. And I can tell you that walking in the stores, if you walk from the front of the store to the back, very few of them would probably have multiple, entrances and exits, or an entrance and an exit, which would allow for easy passage in and out should you have an emergency. The other thing, Marcia, as I watched that, I had nephews who sold on Swan Street, and then they graduated selling in a store and so on. But one of the biggest problems they had, the rents were outrageous. And when I showed them the calculations, I say, you will not make money, because when you do an analysis of the person's fixed costs and so on, and how much money you had to make, because if you treat the rent as one fixed cost, the amount that you had to sell to cover the rent, because when you buy something, you have to recover the cost. You have to use that to pay wages, even if it is only yourself. You have to pay the rent. You have to pay if it's a store, utilities or whatever, if it's not covered. And you realize that the owners of the building were fleecing these people, because at the end of the day, the rents were unrealistically high. And so you would get a lot of turnover, because people went in and then they realized, because they didn't have anybody to help them do the analysis, to say, look, this rent, in order to be able to cover the rent alone, you're going to have to sell so much. And remember that before you even cover the rent, you have to recover the cost, the inventory cost, for example. So some basic calculations would show that the people, it was a non-starter for a lot of people, and they just kept getting themselves, my thing is, you have to look and ask yourself, how can we improve this? What are the options? What other options do we give them? And if you say, well, this is a fire hazard and everybody has to move out and go there, because the truth is, people shop because it's convenient.
Yes.
These are pictures of where this is.
This is pictures. I believe this is either when we're in Kenya or in Ghana.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
right. It looks right.
That this is what happens when things are hard. People cannot
vendors. Yes.
And they're going to vend, and so We are going to need to find solutions instead of putting the hammer down. And if you are going to remove those black people, and I'm going into race right now, and I have Victor Young on the line. Victor, very soon I'm going to put you on. But let me tell you this: if you're going to remove those black people that are selling on the road who cannot afford the store, you have got to get all of those stores
Compliant.
fire compliant. Every single store that those Indians own will have to be fire compliant. I am sorry. That's what I'm saying. Let's go to the call. Good night, Victor. Welcome to the Marcia Reed Show.
Good night. I am very serious here because as a former fire officer, okay, you are having people on the sidewalk, blocking up the sidewalk, blocking up the narrow streets in Swan Street, then approaching you as a fire officer with no respect there, that they have the authority to approach you that way. Let me tell you something about my history in the fire service from my 8 years. In my time, there were people who would sit down by Annie Wilson and sell fruits and all that kind of thing. And I would take a stroll from Province Street to Annie Wilson. And when those people see me, they will hustle their bags and their fruits because they understand my style.
Yes.
I also had a time, and I must give this history because it's a part of me leaving the fire service. I went into the town to do inspections. When I got to about the 5th inspection, because there were no pre-existing doors and that kind of thing, and when I got to the 6th inspection, the guy told me, I know your boss. I said, sir, that's nothing to do with me. I am doing my job. You don't have a fire resistance area here, and I will have to write it up. You know, that guy called my deputy chief, who I would have to report to, and tell him about me. And when I got into the 6th report, the first thing when I talked to him, he asked me, what about this one? I said, sir, my number was 118. He says, 118 young, what about this one? I said, sir, if you cancel this, you will have to cancel the other 5. He says, 118 young, what about this? I said, sir, if you cancel this, you would have to cancel the other 5. But you know what happened? That guy used to kill a pig at Christmas time. So he used to send off a pig leg to my deputy chief. So he thought that the pig leg would have bought me. So when I told my chief what I had to tell him, if you cancel this one, you have to cancel the other 5. That time I was getting $75 a month with a young wife and a daughter. But you know, I would not have got any promotion or anything because I am not feeling the deputy chief. I am doing my job. And I realized what was happening. And by the end of the month, I gave them my resignation. I went off to the university and did my insurance show.
Wow.
And was one of the most successful individuals in the insurance business. And I want to say it again, one of the most successful insurance underwriters in the insurance business. If you go to the nation, you would see every Sunday, you would see the top agents, and you would see Victor Young in the middle. Just like how I perform at the senior games, I perform in all my professions.
Yes,
but
sir.
I'm only showing you the integrity.
Yes.
See, my deputy chief was so accustomed maybe to what he accustomed with. Once you can fill them up at Christmas time, or those days you could kill a pig at home and send a one pig leg to a fella. So he thought that the pig leg would find me. But I was very nice to him.
Yes.
I said, sir, I am doing my job. But you know, before I could get him going, don't take the ride the bicycle while you walk. But I prefer to walk.
Yes.
Because seeing that I had a fantastic physique, a neat waist, a big chest, and no belly, I was able to right in the uniform.
Yes.
So I would take my stroll down very proud, you know what I mean? And do what I had to do. And my dear, people can park on hydrants. If I come and catch a car park on the hydrant, I want to know who it is. But what I'm saying to you, a lot of the guys in the fire department and the police force, they cannot do certain things because listen, they transfer me to every station. You want the station I never work at was St. John, because I wasn't better my gun. But they transfer me to every station to say if you can work me. But you always used to got my cot ready, my saucepan, and so forth. So when you get to the end station, but I would come for myself and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But listen, but we could hear you the whole night, but I have another caller. I promise you. You see, when you come back from that senior game, I am coming to look for you with my camera, and you're going to sit down and tell me this whole story about this pig leg, because you have everybody in there dying with laughter. But I have somebody on the line, though.
Okay,
Victor.
but you can't let these people push you around. You got to be serious about what you're doing in your profession.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for calling. Here, no pig leg. Thank you. Yes. I'm telling you, I am going to visit Victor Young, and I am going to bring you the best of stories. But you know what he said, though, is how the people respected him, and that's what the gentleman was saying, the person who was selling, because they want to stay on Swan Street. Believe you me, if they work with the people work with them, we can get a solution. But I am also saying that one of the other things that they must do is to make everybody compliant, fire compliant, everybody, the owners of the stores and those who are selling outside the stores, everybody, not just the those black young men with their black entrepreneurs. It's no, we're not on our watch. We're going to talk out about it. Miss McClean, go ahead. Let me call the other person. Yeah, in the meantime, go ahead.
I can't have laughing Paul Messiah put it so big foot right fire. Anyway, no, but I think you've touched on something, because it brings me to my neighborhood. I have not spoken about it on here, but I see that the failure to enforce rules does not apply equally across the board. I continue to have in my neighborhood a problem with a I don't know what to call it, a chop shop vehicular thing. And it continues. We have complained, we've spoken directly to the owners of the property. Somebody put up there about construction where people are building apartments and they're just one entrance. Those are things that town planning, you're supposed to get approvals before you even start construction, Yeah,
we have a caller here on the line, Ms. McClean. Caller, welcome to the Marcia Week Show. It's a pleasure to have you. What's on your mind?
Yes, good night, Marcia, and to the panel.
Yes.
What I really don't understand is the silence I get on the ground from political operatives, I call them because that's a very generic word to say, is a lot of critical or expose as it relates to the conflict of interest alliances that I find that is being bandied about the place as if it's a photo ops occasion. But if you see that happening, there are different ways. Like silence in the court of law does not mean that you're innocent.
Yes.
There are different ways. There are different ways to get information. If a government is not giving sufficient, because they may say they are, but the key word there is sufficient, conclusive accounting information as it relates to the Public Accounts Committee, and you are seeing conflict of interest alliances that have access to high-powered weaponry and that such like. And then you further see parliamentarian elite, inverted commas, with problematic situations of involvement in stuff as it relates to the same, not necessarily the guns and stuff, but drugs and X and Y and K. So and I can go on almost the whole night. But with all this said, and people are trying to get or gain or get back a country, these are the things that are supposed to be being spoken of and ramped up about, as opposed to a lot of periphery stuff. Put us again to a book being written, as well as the criminologists who for some reason I don't understand how you can have a criminologist and be it intergenerational or interclass